From Carolla One Studios in Glendale, California, this is the Adam Carolla Show. Adam's guest today, Jay Leno. With Gina Grad on news, Bald Bryan on sound effects, Jordan Harbinger stops by, and MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins in for good sports. And now, no mask can stop him from blowing hard. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. No choice but to get on the mandate. Get it on. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for sharing and watching those ratings climb. Thank you. Good day, Gina Grad.
Good day to you.
Handball, Bryan.
That's a waste of my time.
Oh, I got that kid working, baby.
How so? This is breaking news.
Well, it's important to find out. You know, everyone always talks about, like, what do you want to do? You know, it's career day, and the fire captain's going to speak to the sixth graders. And what do you want to do? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? It's equally as important to find out what you don't want to do. People really don't make enough of this. I mean, people say, like, well, you didn't learn anything from your parents. Your parents never guided you or instructed you or coached you or shaped you. And it's like, I learned a shit ton from my parents. I looked
By
at
default.
Yes, I looked at them and went, I don't want to do that. I will do the opposite of whatever I think they will be doing. And you learn a lot about what you don't want to do from doing it. And we're cleaning out my backyard. There's a lower piece of land, had a bunch of leaves and whatever. And it's getting all raked up and hoed down and bundled up and put into hefty bags and pushed up the driveway and thrown in the back of a dually pickup truck and taken to a dump. And I said to Sonny, you down there, get down there for a day. Get down there for 1 hour a day. And I don't mean 57 minutes. I just mean you got to put in an hour. I'm going to have Peter clock you. You can't punch out early. You need to be working the whole time. And he said, okay. And I saw him yesterday. He was pushing a wheelbarrow up a driveway with a bunch of bags in it, sweating profusely from the face, explained to me how much it sucked. And I said, yeah, it does suck.
It does.
And I said, the other guys that are down there, they're doing it 8 hours a day. You're doing it an hour a day. I used to do it 8 or 10 hours a day. It sucks. And then he's like, yeah, I'd like to work at the Target, putting stuff on the shelves, or, you know, maybe work for you or Nate, or like making films. And I'm like, yeah, okay, figure out what sucks. And then, I mean, if every kid just graduated high school and did 2 years in the military, like Israel, they'd be dying to go to college. They would have a complete...
and they'd value it more. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't be...
For sure. For sure.
And like we talk about self-selecting groups, some of them would love the military, and they're the ones that should be there. Everybody else needs to get going.
I had an ultimate winner from this COVID-19 business. We've been doing it as kind of a goof, you know, doing our trailer or doing our bits on it. But the ultimate winner, Russell Simmons.
Ooh.
Now,
how so?
Interesting.
Now, that's right. See, well, first off, he just won because you said how so. Mm-hmm. And that makes him a winner. And
did he get away with some scandal or something?
Gina, I don't know what you know, but I walked into the next room. Now, you have to understand, I don't go in there and talk about vintage Datsun racing parts and expect those guys to know what I'm talking about. But stuff that's on Netflix, stuff that's on HBO, stuff that's on Showtime, I expect a guy like Bryan or Chris or Gary, I expect those guys to be caught up on that stuff. I was watching HBO. It was a few weeks back, and it was like, oh, we have the trailer. I think we'll run. It's a minute and 10-second trailer for the Russell Simmons situation. Go ahead.
I didn't tell that many people about what happened with Russell. He just grabbed me.
Oh my.
He just grabbed me.
Oh dear.
And I'm saying no. I was reduced to nothing in that moment. Nothing about anything that makes me who I am mattered.
I had asked her, do you want to go to the police? She was like, no one's going to take me seriously. Who's going to believe me?
If white women are not believed, what do you think is happening to Black women in America when we come forward with stories about sexual violence? I don't have a stitch of violence in me. I would never hurt anybody.
You're worried as a black woman that you'll say something that will have consequences that you hadn't anticipated.
He's the king of hip-hop. The black community will hate my guts. I didn't want to let the culture down. I love the culture.
It's a terrible burden to bear, to know that you might still be judged as somehow being a traitor.
All right. You can just stop it. The whole point is
Get the gist.
I remember seeing a commercial for it, and I went, Russell Simmons, and then I thought, oh, yeah, he's into all the meditation and the beads and the incense and the hippie stuff. Right. And Ellen loves dancing, and I get it. Bill Cosby loves crazy sweaters and dancing. Okay. He's a gentle soul. The point is I thought, oh, my God, he's getting Me Too'd big time. This aired on HBO on May 27th.
Oh, perfect.
That's the weekend the riots started.
Wow. I didn't even hear about this. This is up my alley, man. I didn't even hear about this.
And Bryan, who, is a media guy who monitors all the projects coming down the pike.
Yeah.
This isn't on, this isn't on, blue tard TV that you can only use if you have a flip phone. This is HBO. Prime time.
Yeah, HBO documentaries are getting to be kind of events these days. You know what I mean? Like, people know about them and they're discussed and they're in the zeitgeist.
I walked through this building. No one knew what I was talking about.
Wow.
You want to talk about the ultimate winner? I mean, think about it.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. I mean,
well, he was until you brought it up.
Well, maybe. But but not only did he have the COVID thing, but the race riots break out that day. Like that.
He really
weekend.
is powerful.
No one's heard of it, and now it's gone.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. That's a winner. That's a win.
Now, if you're Russell Simmons, you're sitting around. You know this thing's on the calendar. You've seen the spots. You're well aware of it. You're just counting down to when this news cycle blows up. We're sort of getting a little tired of the whole COVID thing at this point. And then riots on the streets, fires, looting, cops, Black Lives Matter. Boom. Not a headline, not a stitch, not a segment dedicated on MSNBC. No, interview the survivors or the victims. Gone. And I always know, people say to me all the time, see, people will say to me, oh, what do you mean it didn't get any press? Here's a story from HuffPo from 2 weeks ago. It's like, hey, listen, I asked Brian.
Yeah.
I asked Chris. I asked Gary. I asked Matt. No one had heard of it. You may pull me the online story where it was technically it came out, but that doesn't mean it got traction because everybody I've asked about it. I mean, I was saying to Chris, I saw the commercial like a month ago. Did this thing come out yet? And he's like, I don't know if it's aired yet. And I'm like, has it? Hasn't it? We don't even know if it came out. It came out.
This gets crazier. This is directed by Kirby Dick, who I love. He did This Film Is Not Yet Rated, which is a great documentary, which we all enjoy, I think.
Right. Well,
this is not a fly-by-night operation. This is a real documentary.
Yeah, he's also now he's the victim, right? I mean, Russell's the winner, and Kirby. I hope it's
Kirby's
not Curvy.
Kirby Dick.
Kirby. Does he have Peyronie's disease? The thing is this. He's kind of the loser because he did this great documentary, or ostensibly, I'm sure it was a great documentary. No buzz. Nobody's talking about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. No traction.
Does it come back? I mean, do you wait? Like, how?
If it gets like Oscar buzz, then yeah, it comes back. But
you kind of get one shot at this.
The Oscar buzz is a long shot because there's so many good documentaries. But if it gets an Oscar nomination, for example, it'll be back in the public eye. Should we just raise Russell Simmons' arm right now and declare him the winner of this? I mean, or do we have to just ride it out to the end of the season? You have to ride it out, but it's at this point, he's like Jerry Rice, and the receiving records are just so far out of reach. We can just declare him the GOAT.
Because he got the COVID and the Black Lives Matter in the same weekend.
Yeah.
Now, just think of all the luck of the draw. I mean, just think about the slow news cycle. We've talked about it all the time. Absolutely nothing. You know, we do have those dry periods of just nothing's happening. And sometimes they go on for 3 weeks or something. Could you imagine pre-pandemic, pre-Black Lives Matter? It's just heading into the doldrums of the summer. He's doing it on Memorial Day. I mean, was it Labor Day or Memorial Day? I don't remember my birthday is. Memorial Day. I mean, this could have been a whole thing. Turns out, Bryan hasn't heard of it, and Bryan monitors things.
Yeah, I should know about this. I'm sort of ashamed.
And even if there were no riots per se, like you said, the COVID thing was kind of, people were already like, okay, I've heard enough. Like, what else is in the news?
Right.
And that would have been enough. But nope, literally that day.
The ultimate winner.
Speaking of winners and movies and all of that, I had this ready. I was prepared for this, and this pales in comparison. My nominee, which now is second place or somewhere farther back, was going to be a pre-winner of the COVID pandemic, Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe has a movie coming out July 1st, which they have not taken away. Most of the movie's been bumped back, right? The big movie's been bumped back because of the COVID. A movie called Unhinged, which looks very, very aggressively marginal, but it's going to be like the first movie when theaters reopen. It's going to do $200 million worth of business. Right. This ridiculous movie that no one otherwise would have seen. They held pat, God bless them, and 1 million people are going to go see Unhinged.
Well, it'll be like what people did, as I told you back in the day. Whatever was at the theater, we just wanted some air conditioning. You know, like we just go to the theater. People are going to go to the theater just to say, Friday night, we're going out and seeing a movie. And whatever's there is there. All right, Jordan Harbinger is hanging with us. He'll be brought to you by NetSuite. Great segment today. Talk a little about business with him. He's a business extraordinaire, Jordan Harbinger, and brought to you by friends at NetSuite. NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system, trusted by more than 19,000 companies, and it's the last system you'll ever need. Do we have an intro?
NetSuite presents The Wonderful World of Business with Jordan Harbinger.
Jordan, you want to talk about college, and that's good because I got a college professor story I want to talk about as well with you. So you first.
Yeah, I've been doing the math on a lot of the money that I've invested in the market. And I look at, okay, I've invested X, Y, Z. And then I look at how much money I spent on law school, which is about 7 years. If you count 4 years undergrad, 3 years of grad school. And the opportunity cost alone got me just on a path of self-flagellation where I decided to just punish myself by showing how much I've lost by investing that money in my education instead of investing it in just a straight up in the market. And that's not a great exercise to do unless you really just want to cry yourself to sleep. But I found that I'll keep it short. I lost a lot of money. And the idea of having to go to college was shoved down my throat like it was shoved down the throats of probably the majority of the people listening who actually did go to school. It's just been something that's always been done, and our parents' generation was big on it. And that got me researching student loan debt, and 45 million people in the U.S., and these are old stats. So these are a few years old. 45 million people in the U.S. are in severe student loan debt, like not just owing $5,000, but owing the average is $32,000 or $33,000, just about.
For 45 million Americans. It's very high.
Feels predatory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they kind of got you over a barrel. Like, yeah, you want to go here, you want to go to college, you want to have this earning income potential. You take that, this is your only avenue for a lot of people.
Yeah, 2020 student loan debt is about $1.56 trillion. That's more than credit card debt for everybody in the whole country.
Wow.
It's more than auto loan debt for everyone in the whole country. And everyone has a car loan for pretty much. I mean, people have cars and you need the car to get to work. But the degree, the kind of sad joke is most of the degrees that people get, the job that you get after college, if you're lucky enough to even get one, and we'll get to that in a second, doesn't require the degree or even a degree at all, let alone the degree you actually have.
Yeah, I wonder if the bloom is a little off the rose in college these days. Like when I was a kid, college was how you separated winners from losers. That one guy is going off to college, the other guy's going to work at the mill or go to the construction site or go to the factory or whatever. Maybe Silicon Valley's kind of corrected this a little bit. Maybe there's a lot of guys, that guy dropped out, like everyone who's successful seems to have dropped out and started their own business. So there's certainly more hero stories of people dropping out and starting a business. And also, there used to just be X amount of jobs, and you needed a degree to be capable of performing X amount of jobs. I feel like there's so many jobs now that nobody really knows if you need that degree or not. Yes,
right.
Jordan.
If you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're an engineer, few other professions, you're going to want to go to college. But as I point out to a lot of fellow lawyers that, and some of them don't really love this, but too bad, it's a trade school. We are basically, if you're a lawyer, you're basically just a less handy plumber, a less skilled tradesman. I'd almost rather be a plumber because then you have a solid skill set. You know where you're going to get work. There's no shortage of work for skilled tradesmen, and I'm sure you've discussed that on the show. Lawyers, you go in and you go, please, big corporation, give me a job making copies and checking for commas and documents until I can shadow someone for 3 years and become useful. And there's only so many of those positions.
Right. So also, I'm not sure what's going on with college and college campuses, because I heard this story today that a UCLA professor named Gordon Klein has been suspended for 3 weeks, and they're going after his job with 20,000 signatures and all this shit because some kid, a white kid, like sent him a letter that said, hey, with all that's going on, we can't fully support the protest and take the final. So can we just make the final like not count, essentially? And he said, sorry, but you got to do the final. That's the rules. I don't know who's black.
He was called woefully racist.
He was racist. He was saying, like, I don't know which kids are black and which kids aren't black in the school, or which are mixed, or which are whatever, because everything's online. But either way, according to Dr. Martin Luther King, you're all equal. So let's all just take the test and get on with it. And now he's in a fucking world of hurt. I love this new world order where 19-year-olds are telling everybody what to do, or they get wished out into the cornfield. So this guy, the UCLA professor, also, I don't know, when you tell the professor during summer break to go home and he hasn't been on campus for 3 months and it's during the summer break, how do you get suspended for 3 weeks when, is it summer school from home?
Yeah, they've been doing all the classes online anyway.
But now we're in the summer.
Yeah, so what they did was they took the students from the class and they just distributed them to other professors within the field. So that's how they're going to finish off the class.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
inmates are running the asylum.
It's on, baby.
That's scary.
I don't know. Here's going to be the problem. First off, as I tell everyone, unintended consequences. Who's going to want to be a cop and who's going to want to be a professor in a few years? Do you know what I mean? Like, who's going to be attracted to these jobs where all they do is they get your name, they post it on the whatever, they send it to all the heads in your department, it spreads like wildfire, they massage your response a little bit so it looks worse than it is, and next thing you know, there's 20,000 kids calling for your head.
That's terrifying, especially because college is already kind of hard enough the results of college are already hard enough. College can be hard or it cannot be. That's for sure. I think a lot of us went to resorts, and a lot of people are going to resorts now. What I mean by that is the colleges now, tuition is insanely expensive. In-state tuition grew by 63% from 2008 to 2020 to this year. So if you attend college for all 4 years, you're looking at over $100,000. If you go to an elite private college, the yearly tuition is about $60,000. So you're looking at a lot more than that, $250,000, something like that. That's a lot more than it used to cost. And part of that is because colleges and universities are putting their money into amenities to attract students. It's no longer like this is the best program for this. There's some of that, but a lot of it is we have 3 swimming pools that are outdoors at the University of Miami, something. And it's to attract people who are not really worried about the academics, but are worried about their social life. kind of understandable, but also a terrible investment.
Jordan, I don't know if you did research into this or not, but like, especially with, like you mentioned, the elite universities, they have such massive endowments. It's crazy that they're charging tuition at all, let alone exorbitant tuition. It's like you're sitting on $1 billion or more. Like, it's insane.
It is insane. In fact, I haven't done a ton of research on how this math would work out, but I would imagine that they could afford to, if they wanted to, and they obviously do not, they could afford to just essentially make tuition either a very nominal fee or non-existent for most, if not every single person that goes there. And it wouldn't even dent the principal of the amount in their endowment at this point.
I think first of all, like you said, they don't have to. So why would they bother? I also think if you're talking about elite universities, why have, they want $1 billion. They don't want several $100 million. And also I think it's probably a cachet thing. They don't want to be known as the free school. So there's no reason for any of them to do this.
Yeah, no, there's no reason. That's unlikely to happen. It just seems like they pay a lot of lip service. So like, look, we want to include everyone. It's like, well, you want to be known as the schools that include everyone, but really you just want a bunch of rich people who are going to vastly overpay for their education. So you're 100% right. It's just that there's often somebody saying the opposite in all the promotional material. And they go, look, we give away so much scholarship money. And it's like, well, great. On the other hand, you're making the other students subsidize that. It's not like you are generating this off of your endowment. You're just jacking up the price for the other knuckleheads that go there and pay the full amount, which is actually fine if that's your business model.
It's a racket that hides behind the veil of, they get away with it because it's education. You know what I mean? It's higher education, it's right in the name, higher education. But it's a money-making racket at the end of the day.
It would be different if you got a job afterwards, but 43% of people are underemployed their first year out of college, and 2/3 of people don't have full-time jobs after 5 years.
Really?
Yeah. And this is before the 2020 recession, right? So that's that data. That's the current data. 5 years later, 2/3 of people don't have a full-time job. That is horrendous.
I'm really thinking about the brick and mortar part of this. I mean, aren't we just proving? I mean, think about the concept of like when Dr. Drew went to Amherst, he had to move from Pasadena to I don't know where, outside of Boston, wherever.
Amherst?
Whatever that. Where it is, wherever Amherst
Western
is.
Massachusetts.
Western Mass. So I mean, he had to move from Pasadena there, and I don't know, do you physically need to live at the place you're getting the information from in this day and age of people working from home and Zoom and that and productions? I mean, I always kind of liken it to when Kevin and Bean were talking about having Bean move to Seattle in 2000 or 2003 or whatever it was. Everyone's like, that's insane. That'll never work. They're a morning team. How can you do a morning show with a guy 800 miles away? It's like he moved. Next Monday they started, and then they did another 22 years. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's pretty doable. I don't see why you'd have to move across the country and live in a dorm. Now, I get there's an experience to it, and I'm all ears about the experience, but you know, $60,000 a year plus whatever, housing and meals and blah, 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 whatever it is. I feel like if I had a college, I'd be a little nervous about what's going to look like 10 years from now. It was completely unchanged from zero to yesterday, but from this point on, I don't know. And they're doing their own experiment. They're sending everyone home. Yeah, sorry.
Well, that I totally agree with you. They got greedy. And because there is, I think we can all, Bryan and Jordan, even if you finished or didn't finish, if you experience college at all, you can absolutely say there are super important reasons to leave the nest and go live in this semi-controlled, semi-independent environment. It's awesome. I wouldn't have traded it for the world. I'm so glad I got to experience it. But given that, like you said, not endowment, but how much tuition has jumped 65%. Right. They got greedy. They're shooting themselves in the foot. And as Adam realized, you crunch the numbers and you go, well, yeah, I get it. It's fun. And there are some things you learn, but you really don't have to go, and we really can't afford it.
Right.
Ooh, how about we start a chain of private frats? It's a frat environment.
I'm listening.
where, you want that frat house, but you don't want to have to move across the country and whatever. We do. You can do keg stands. We'll get in. There'll be a little bit of date rape, but it's not going to be something we really focus on. We'll have the guys living together. We'll have the sort of Blutarsky type, and we'll have the nerds type, and you can really get that experience every once in a while. Just hire an actor to be the mean dean who shows up and pounds at the door at the frat house. You can get the experience without physically having to move to campus.
This is great.
What frat were you in, Bryan?
Pi Kappa Phi, Pi Cap.
And was that your first choice?
No, what's funny, so you'll appreciate this. What's funny is I didn't join fraternity. I didn't think it was for me. I didn't really enjoy the experience during Rush, and I kind of just sat out. And then a recruiter from Pi Kappa Phi National came to USC and was like, "Hey, we're starting a chapter here. Who wants to help found the chapter?" I was
that's right.
I'm like, oh, that sounds like a really cool, unique opportunity. And so I did it, and it was very, very hard and not rewarding in terms of attention from girls, but it was very. I'm glad I did it. I would never change it.
Are they still going at USC?
They've been off and on due to violations of various sorts. But yeah, as far as I know, they're still there. They're pretty big. Oh, they're big in the South, especially. They were founded at College of Charleston.
But you did the first one at USC.
Yeah, we chartered the chapter. It's pretty awesome. It was a cool experience. Yeah, it's not just like joining up a frat. It's you're creating the bylaws and doing all the shit, and yeah, it's kind of cool.
Jordan,
sounds like work.
Jordan, were you in a frat?
It was a lot of work.
I wasn't, no. And honestly, I can say that I should have been because, one, people, a common critique of the Jordan Harbinger show is, this guy just sounds like all the frat guys that annoyed me in college. But I got no benefit of actually being that frat guy that was annoying in college. And the other thing is, if I'd realized back then that it was about the experience, I would have studied far less skull shapes of Australopithecines and far more going to frat parties and actually making friends and talking with women and things like that I put off because I thought I'm doing great. I'm studying. And then I went to grad school and studied more. And I realized now it's like, man, I've really spent a lot of time barking up the wrong tree.
You guys both did it wrong.
My first girlfriend was my first girlfriend was an AD Pi at USC.
So was Christy.
Wow. Oh, yeah, I think I banged her. Yeah, like back
son
in
of
the
a
day.
bitch. They're right across the street from our house, literally across you walked past our house before it was our house, obviously, many times.
I went to their house. I went to a few of the sorority parties and dances and stuff. It was so weird because I was from North Hollywood and I was all poor and I was working construction. I was driving a pickup truck and everything. It felt such a bizarre world to enter into. And I really did have one of those 80s rich dad moments where we went to her,
how much is it going to cost for you to go away?
Oh God. I mean it. Her dad was named Gordon something the third, I remember he had
did he go by, was it L Gordon, but he went by Gordon? Because that's always a power move. That's a rich whitey move.
He was a rich attorney with a mustache, and he had a gold nugget watch, the kind of watches that have the nuggets all over the band, and
for beating off boyfriends.
Yeah, they lived in a big house with the master bedroom had wall-to-wall carpet with a sunken jacuzzi near the closet, mind-blowing stuff. They had a ballroom in their house. And
where did they live?
He was the Beast from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. What part of town were they in?
He was in, up here outside of Pasadena. It's called
Alhambra?
No, it's
Altadena?
No, God, I'll think of it in a second. It's called City of Homes or something is what it's
wow,
called.
So exclusive. We've never heard of it.
It's just one of these big, sprawling, kind of dumb white guy houses, there's nothing architecturally interesting about it with the circular driveway and everything, but it was
I told him that.
It had one of those rooms that you couldn't walk in because you would leave footprints in the carpet.
Sure.
You had to rake the carpet behind you, And God, it's past Pasadena. It's right where the track is. It's right where Santa Anita is. It's whatever the city Santa Anita's in. It's right up in there. Anyway, what city is Santa Anita in, Max Spada? That'll tell you. Anyway, I showed up. I'm driving the pickup truck with the busted off cranks. Arcadia.
Yeah.
Arcadia. Yeah.
Right. Check the tape.
Yeah.
I said Arcadia.
Oh,
Did you
sorry.
say, oh, good, you're here. The toilet's still making noise.
I'm sorry, bro. Arcadia, and it was.
When I would I was a bartender at USC. That was like my work study job. I got paid like $7 an hour to learn how to bartend, and we would do private events up in Arcadia for the president of the university. That's like the governor's mansion. They had like the president's mansion, and all the donors would come, and I would check coats and make drinks and just do all that shit. So anyway,
yeah, that's what it was. Just kind of big and sprawling, and kind of not a lot of personality, but just there it was, and I went over there for dinner a couple of times, and the mom was real proper, and the dad was real proper, and they just kind of gave me the stink eye the whole time, and I didn't really think much of it. I didn't realize what was happening. They had their Deb of a daughter who was going to USC and an 80 pie, and her boyfriend was this dude who lived in an apartment with 3 dudes in North Hollywood and basically slung stucco all day, and I'm pulling up in a beater pickup truck, and I'm not really getting the part that I'm the dude from the wrong side of the tracks. He didn't save up and send her to college so she could hook up with she could hook up with a doofus like me. And
you're Danny Zuko without the pipes.
That's right. And but don't worry, she wised up.
Oh yeah.
And that was that. I did end up getting a sectional sofa out of the deal.
Oh.
At some point after she dumped me. She then explained that their parents were getting rid of their blue sectional sofa, and I could have it. I think her dad. I always looked.
Nice.
Yeah, I looked at it as a parting gift.
Yeah, it's a good consolation prize.
So I went over in my beat up pickup truck and got the beater sectional sofa and put it in my crappy apartment, and that was it. That was the end of that. But she was Stephanie was an AD pie. I probably got pictures of her. Maxi Pie. I think I got an event of me and her in an event. Like she's wearing like gold lame.
Oh my!
I'm wearing like a tuxedo.
Where'd you get a tuxedo?
I probably rented it or borrowed it or something. And I remember a very distinct conversation on like how dumb I was. I was sitting there in amongst the college people and the frat and the sorority and everything. And I was like 24, 25 or something. And a guy at a table was like sitting, I was talking to him. I was like, what do you do? What do you do? And he's like, I'm from Texas. And my family's from Texas. I'm out here going to USC. And he goes, I go, well, what do you do over there in Texas for fun? And he goes, we'll go down to the beach every once in a while. And I go, beach? There's no beach in Texas. I've seen the TV shows. Texas looks like all desert and tumbleweeds and ghost towns. There's no beach. I started
from South Padre Island.
I started laughing maniacally because I thought Texas was like Nebraska. Oh, there we are.
Wow. He is in gold lame.
Yeah.
Ooh la la.
The Diamond Ball, 1987.
Diamond Ball, 1987.
They still have the Diamond Ball.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, it's annual.
Oh, there we are. I remember just being so fucking dumb laughing at this guy. I go, there's no beach in Texas. Texas is the middle of the country. It's landlocked. Yeah, I didn't know anything.
So there's a basement at the Alamo.
Yeah. All right.
Wow.
I don't know how old you remember the house, the 80 Pie house. All the sorority houses, there's like 9 or 10 or whatever at USC. They're gorgeous, beautiful architectural marvels. It had a huge lawn. It was like distinctive. It was on the corner. It had a massive lawn. We'd go play football. We'd go play football over there.
I remember parking sort of next to it, behind it, or sort of to the side of it, and walking up. And I don't know. There was some meeting that was going on where they were deciding who was doing the cooking, and then they all clapped and chanted. It was all very bizarre for me and where I came from. Chris and Ray getting me in headlocks and smashing shit in my ear and stuff. Like, it was all a weird world. I had no idea how any of it worked. I didn't even really know how you got to go to college. Like the paperwork you needed to fill out, the tests you needed to take, paying. It all just seemed bizarre. I felt like a cutter from the movie Breaking Away. You guys can look up the reference. Hey, Jordan. Thanks for spurring our talk down memory lane.
Of course.
We got an outro, or we play that.
There we go.
Yeah.
What a wonderful world of business. Jordan Harbinger, brought to you by NetSuite.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan, and thanks, NetSuite. And
thank y'all. Good to see you.
Want to schedule your free product tour, you can do it right now and get a free guide. 7 key strategies to grow your profits at netsuite.com/Adam. Support this podcast and this sponsor. And Jordan, you can check out the Jordan Harbinger Show, available on Spotify and Podcast One as well. Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Good news during all this craziness out there. AV Ed tweeted me a picture last night that he was combing through Netflix, and my movie, Uppity, has made the Black Lives Matter collection on Netflix.
Wow.
You're
As
in.
it should.
Yeah, so I got range.
Nice.
You are a conundrum wrapped in a riddle.
People are so confused. They don't know what to do now.
Everyone's head's going to explode.
Come
this
on.
balances out all the other movies exclusively about white guys.
That's right. I've made the Black Lives Matter collection over.
You know,
man.
Adam, man show, guy who's always on Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
The BLM collection. Yeah.
All right. We'll take ourselves a break, and we'll come back and do the news right after this.
Give me the news with Grad, news with Gina Grad, breaking viral, all those crazy Trump tweets. Give me news with Gina Grad, trouble in the Middle East, celebrity drunk meltdowns. Need news with Gina Grad.
The news with Gina Grad.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw this last night as we record this, but I thought it was very worth bringing up. I just happened to glance at the TV when it was happening. Big fight on the Sean Hannity show on Fox between commentator Professor Dr. Cornel West and civil rights attorney and talk radio host who you might be familiar with, Leo Terrell. Adam, I don't know if that name rings a bell from KBC.
I know all the local radio guys.
Yeah. So you think, maybe they were coming on to see eye to eye on some stuff. No, sir. They got into a heated argument on Hannity's show Tuesday over the wave of protests across the country, attacks against police, and especially the topic of defunding the police. So the whole thing's 5 minutes, so I cut like a minute of it.
Right.
I'm going to let it roll. But first, Sean asked West why there's so much violence basically in big liberal cities like Chicago, why we're failing America's children when it comes to cities like that. West said that it has to do with underfunded, undereducated communities. He also said it was under the leadership of Rahm Emanuel, who he's not a fan of, and Trump, who obviously he's not a fan of. And he said, okay, fine. Leo, what about you? And when Hannity asked Terrell the question, he went right back to Cornel West, and this went on for literally 5 minutes, but we have about 90 seconds of it.
Sean, you asked Dr. Cornel West the type of question you asked in a court of law. He won't answer them because he's just giving you old talking points. I'll speak to you, Dr. Cornel West, black man to black man. There's looting going on, and you try to confuse. No, it's my turn. It's my turn.
Cornel's
you try to conflate. Protesting and police misconduct. And shame on you. And you're absolutely wrong. You won't address the issue. You will refuse to address the issue because I'm talking to you. You're not my brother. You're not my brother. You are hurting black people by acting this position. You are taking the wrong position. No, my brother. That stuff plays out. That plays out. Address the question. Do you? Oh my gosh! You have lost control. You're a dinosaur. You're an outright dinosaur. You have lost it, sir. I'm not part of your group. I'm not part of your group. You have lost it. You are a dinosaur. And you know what?
You a neolithic,
you are wrong.
Brother.
You are wrong, my friend. No, I don't think so. Because your position is so way off. I will not respect that.
You come out of the block disrespecting people.
Yeah,
you disrespect me the day that Brother Floyd is
and do all you want. That does not work on me. That does not work on me.
All right.
So Hannity tries to chime in a few times and finally just goes to break.
Yeah. So Leo Terrell, so it's an interesting inflection point we're at now. Leo Terrell was a guy who, he's a civil rights attorney. He thought OJ was innocent. He was, as far to the left of the equation as you could possibly get. But the left is going so far left that even guys that were pretty far left are not that far left. That the ideas, the Joe Bidens of the world and Bill Clinton's and things like that. I think most people are like, yeah, that makes sense. But AOC doesn't make sense to Leo Terrell. But Bill Clinton makes sense to Leo Terrell, but AOC's brand doesn't. And it's going so far that now they're fighting with each other. And there's a lot more vitriol if you think about it. Think about the mayor of Minneapolis. If you think about it this way, if there are two brothers or two sisters who are biological brothers and sisters and they have a falling out, there's a lot more there than coworkers,
right,
or frat brothers, or just dudes who went to high school.
Well, there's
with.
more history. Yeah,
I just mean there's a lot more to those arguments. So as you think about it, Tucker Carlson or Dinesh D'Souza could have a debate with Anderson Cooper, but there's not that much there afterward.
No.
They kind of go home.
There's nothing.
These guys were brothers, I mean, they're on the same side. And then when that cracks and comes apart, that's where you get the crazy vitriol. So if you see the right and the left argue, they go, well, agree to disagree. And sometimes it gets heated, but it doesn't get passionate. And also, I've watched Cornel West on Mar's show many times. I generally like him, but you saw that look in his face. That's a guy who hasn't been told to fuck off in 30 years. You know what I mean? Like,
let alone by someone ostensibly on his side.
Right. So what it is like he goes on Bill Maher. He sort of holds court. He's this guy, and no one ever goes, shut up, you're wrong. They go, once in a while they go, well, let me push back on that last. Believe me, I'm down with the cause, but let me. When Leo Terrell just told him to shut up, he leaned into the camera and you could see a bit of a crazed look on his face.
Yeah.
I experienced it, as I told you, when I played the celebrity softball game and I told what I thought was just the manager of the Mud Hens to fuck off, fuck himself, or I'd kick his ass. I didn't know that guy was the head of show business when I told him that. And when he came at me, I could see it in his face that he hadn't been told to fuck off in 30 years. And find a guy you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to get one of those police body cams, and I would just walk around and I'd go in front of Barbara Streisand, and I'd go, hey, you old cunt, fuck off. And I'd just watch her face just explode because there's a look of confusion.
Confusion.
It's like, what? I haven't been told to fuck off since 1974. You can tell the people are just kind of used to, that's their permanent posture. It's in their place. Cornel West was like, he couldn't control his face. He couldn't control his energy. And you can tell that is the face of a guy who's been adored and worshipped and not told to fuck off for 30 years. So that was the reaction.
If he had an argument, it completely derailed it because the rest of it, it's very hard to hear because he's kind of it seems like he's on a Skype call. But Leo Terrell keeps saying, answer the question. I'm answering the question. Can you answer the question? And all Cornel West does is say, you're disrespecting me. You're disrespecting me. So he couldn't even function and get the rest of the answer out if there was one.
I don't know.
I have no idea what the substance of their argument was even about because it was all just yelling.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah, I don't think we would chalk that up to the honest dialogue we're trying to get into. But it is a bizarre world where arch enemies like Larry Elder and Leo Terrell are now on the same side of many subjects out there, many topics. So it's, you live long enough, man.
Yeah,
you see it all.
See it all. So there were rumblings about this a couple weeks ago. It didn't seem super reportable at the time because there wasn't enough detail. But now it's coming up on my news alerts. So I guess we're going to have that conversation, especially when this trial starts. So the former Minneapolis nightclub where both George Floyd and Derek Chauvin worked, there's a guy from there, an employee from there, who says the two often worked on the same night and frequently, quote, bumped heads. So he was speaking with CBS News. His name's David Pinney. He said Floyd and Chauvin definitely knew each other pretty well and had a history of friction. He said it has a lot to do with Derek being extremely aggressive within the nightclub with some of the patrons, which was the issue. And I thought, it stops there, but it doesn't. Floyd's family and attorney have stated that Chauvin's aggressive arrest of Floyd, which led to his death, was personal and he should therefore be charged with first-degree murder. But somebody else within the club said, Maya Santa Marita, she owns the club that they worked at, and said that Chauvin had an issue with Black patrons and believes he was afraid and intimidated by them.
Oh, boy.
Not sure how they would have interacted because Chauvin, I guess, was more of like sitting in a cop car out front. Floyd was inside. Also, if you're the owner and you know that the guy outside's roughing up your crowd, I don't know why he still works there. So a lot of this is just, I think, laying the groundwork for what's going to come out in a trial situation, I would imagine.
So he definitely knew whose neck his knee was on.
That's what it sounds like. Again, there were rumblings about this a couple weeks ago, but it didn't seem credible yet. Like we didn't have enough, but this is coming out in news alerts now. So I'm very curious to see what this relationship was. You certainly couldn't tell in the video we've all been shown that there was a history.
But wouldn't it make sense if they knew each other? What's Chauvin's first name?
Derek.
Derek. Would it make sense if they worked together that at some point Mr. Floyd would say, Derek, or hey man, like address him in a way that was not a sort of
familiar,
generic. Even if he hated his guts and whatever, but like at a certain point his name would come out of his mouth. That seems weird to me. That part seems strange.
Well, and the only, forgive me for being macabre, and I could be wrong, but from what I remember, the only video we have with audio is when he is struggling and then when he's no longer struggling. So we don't have audio from the stuff that we have video from when he's just sitting on the curb and stuff, right? I haven't heard audio. It's just
I've heard tale and allusions to body cam footage that's not being released. I don't know if that exists or if that's apocryphal, but it would seem relevant at this point.
I'm just talking about the actual street security camera. That's just video. So we don't know what the back and forth was.
Right. And that's true. But like even when his knee is on his neck and he's having difficulty, he's able to get out a few words. It just, you'd think that the guy's name would come out at that point. All right. Well, we shall continue, I guess.
Yeah. And when I was first, reading the first part of this article, I thought, so the argument's going to be this had nothing to do with skin color. These guys just had beef from, their own interpersonal relationship. And then the owner herself says, he was very intimidated and afraid of our Black clientele. So we'll see where all of this goes, but definitely keep it on your radar. Speaking of HBO, I can tell you who the loser of, I guess we could call it COVID-19, but of this time period is. It would be
110,000 people who've lost their lives, Gina.
Yeah, Gina.
Close.
Jesus Christ. Where are we going with this?
Gone with the Wind. HBO Max has removed Gone with the Wind from their streaming service. On Monday, an LA Times op-ed successfully convinced HBO Max to shelve the 1939 film because it romanticizes the horrors of slavery. Academy Award-winning writer-director John Ridley said the Civil War drama perpetuates some of the most painful stereotypes of people of color. This won Best Picture 80 years ago, all-time highest-grossing film, adjusted, of course, and consistently ranks among the critics as one of the best movies in Hollywood history. But it's a tough watch, almost 100 years later.
I don't know. Brian, thoughts?
I was going to say, have either of you seen it? I
have not seen the whole thing. We talked on the show.
I never saw the whole thing. It's a spectacular movie. It's spectacular.
Isn't it fucking like 3.5 hours long? It just feels like we talk on the film about certain films feel like homework. It feels like fucking homework. But at the same time, we've talked on the show before about like films are. Films and music or whatever, like they're markers of where we were and how far we've come. You know what I mean? Like, yes, this depicts a period of time and probably romanticizes it in a way that we wouldn't do today. But that's how the film was in 29, 39, whatever it was. I'm sorry, I forgot the year.
80 years old. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So my point is, yeah, it's a mark. If it's like overtly racist or calling people to arms, like, you know, like Mein Kampf or something like that.
Like Birth of a Nation?
Maybe even Birth of a Nation, though. But my point is, like, this is, I don't know how much you hate Slippery Slope Guy. This is like one step towards like burning books or banning books. You know what I mean? Well, it's like that movie has been banned, but this isn't solving anything. This is a marker of where we were and how far we've come.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because the first thing I thought of is when people want to take paintings and stuff out of museums and statues. I don't care about. You get rid of them, don't get rid of them. But like museums that are there to preserve that moment in history and say this is that snapshot. I did wonder, well, does that pertain to films too, or no?
Well, it is a slippery slope, and I don't like the slippery slope guy, but I think we have ample evidence that the progressive movement, which has the words progress and movement in the title, is not slowing down. It's speeding up. You kind of start with stuff like, well, what about the Confederate flag, or what about the Washington Redskins? And you kind of go, I kind of get that, but it's never satiated. You know, it's just sort of on to the next thing. I mean, the editor of Bon Appetit magazine just had to step down because of brown face, like Puerto Rican outfit from 17 years ago. I mean, if there were any signs of satiation or slowing down, I might be more for it. My promise, I haven't seen any signs of it slowing down, but I also don't feel like I make the same argument with blackface. When Jimmy Fallon does Chris Rock, that's not blackface. And we're doing a thing where it's like we kind of go, well, it was 1940. They didn't really know what they were doing, but it wasn't 1940. It was 1865, you know?
Right,
like they were capturing what was going on in 1866 or whenever that
Civil War era, 1861.
1861. That's what they were capturing.
Right.
And the same way you couldn't drive a fucking Prius through a shot. You can't, you have to go, here's the technology, here's the weapons they fought with, here's how they treated black people, here's how the women dressed, here's how the men dressed. It's an attempt at a recreation of that time. And also, I remember seeing Gone with the Wind. Look, I watched all 8 parts of Roots. I mean, that was appointment viewing.
Under duress.
That was appointment viewing for the Carolla family, so my mom could look at me every 9 minutes and go, "Can you believe what we did? Can you believe that?" I go, "Us? We don't have a fucking chamber pot. You think we owned people?" So, I watched every bit of it, and every bit of it, I went, "Oh God, that's horrible. That's horrible. What we used to do." And then also, let's not do that again. There's a big element of that. And I was, 10, and it was in perfect context. I got all of it. And that movie was rough. Like, they were whipping him and, the whole...
That I did see.
The whole 9 yards. And it was tough to watch. I felt really bad. I felt bad for them. I felt bad for myself, I was playing football with the Boyd brothers, my 2 black friends. I used to go stay at their house and stuff. I felt bad that their ancestors may have been subjected to this, but
you'd apologize in the huddle out of nowhere.
Right. It was all in context. I understood very well. It didn't glorify anything. It didn't make me think of, oh, well, now I must participate in slavery somehow. And it was all in context. If you're looking to solve whatever problems you're looking to solve, this is not the direction to go. As a matter of fact, I think I started off the show by saying you learn more from watching people do stuff you don't want to do or you don't agree with versus, we always talk about inspired. I watched Bryan's song about the same time and I was inspired. I liked football and stuff, but I watched Roots and probably learned a lot more.
You know whose opinion I'd be curious about when it comes to pulling this off HBO or not? Lin-Manuel Miranda. Because when you talk about, the creator of Hamilton and the big, not only is it, this triumph of, a musical that, historically, whatever, the diverse casting is what it will sort of always be known for. When that's going to be very commonplace, this kind of blew the lid off the whole thing. And I would think that someone like, I don't know, I have no idea, but I would think that these new ways of looking at history and, when you're performing, balance the accurate prescription or the accurate depictions. So you kind of need them both for context. You don't just completely get rid of one or the other.
Also, Hattie McDaniel won the Best Supporting Actress, first African-American to win the Oscar. We're going to take that thing down.
She wasn't going to be allowed to go to the ceremony. They had to rig it, they had to pull in favors, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the details of the story. This is just what I've read about the top line.
Well,
it's either her tombstone or her statue. One of them's at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
Well, next time they bring back drive-in scary movie inflatable screen night that we all miss so much.
Go check it out. Yeah.
There's also another part of this that I don't like, and I've always spoke about the symbolic satiation. I've spoke about it in terms of the American Indians. Like, nobody needs help more than the American Indians. So we can stop calling that team the Braves, or we can stop calling that team the Redskins. That doesn't help the crazy diabetes in that community. And now,
is any group or any person better off today now that Gone with the Wind has been taken off of HBO Max or whatever it's called?
Right, but there's a lot of people... I live and work amongst them on occasion where they get satiated. Like, you go, hey, whatever happened with the guy that was supposed to come over and work on the air conditioning? And they go, I called him. And I go, when? 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, oh, you're satiated. But he never called you back and the air conditioning's still on the fritz. Like, there's a satiation that you have to be careful about because this idiot at the Times went, okay, got that done.
Good. Yeah, check that off the list.
Now I'm going to move on to the Aunt Jemima syrup bottle or whatever it is.
Whatever's next.
Right, but that's not what's next. We should be talking about reform and vouchers and school vouchers and school choice and things like that. But you feel satiated because you've done your fucking job with a movie. It's scary. That's the scary part. Or I got this professor shit canned from his job, or I got the guy from Bon Appetit magazine fired.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mission
You've
accomplished.
done nothing, heroes, but yet you feel good about yourself. God, that's a scary impulse.
I just thought of this vis-a-vis you talking about people who were formerly enemies are now allies. Dig this concept. In a weird way, the band, getting Gone with the Wind removed from HBO Max or banning books. I think Gina did a story about To Kill a Mockingbird being banned in Texas or something like that.
Yeah. A bunch of books banned in Alaska.
Yeah, Alaska, that was it. My point is the extremism of both sides, almost like that donut-shaped universe where they come in, they meet at the point where they're banning things. You know what I mean? It's a very far left and a very far right thing to want to ban ideas and works of art and books and movies. Is you're not solving anything or helping anyone. You're drawing attention to this cause, but it is not moving anything.
Well, I don't know if this is going to be...
It feels scary to me.
You'll be happy.
Yeah, it's Orwellian.
You'll be happy to know that I just read an article in today's paper that Sambo's in Santa Barbara is no longer Sambo's.
Sambo's in Kansas, too.
It's offensive.
Did they go with Negroes or where they go? Something else? No?
Tar babies, is what they're going with.
What they've done is they've tried to replace all of the letters on the sign, SAMBOS, with the peace sign, an and sign, and the word love.
But peace and love.
They kept falling off So until they can get a permanent sign and a new name, it's just trash bags.
Can't they just readjust the letters so it's like Bamos?
Yeah, like they did with Johns. They turned Vons into Johns. You know what I mean?
Bosoms.
Right.
They could call it bosoms.
Sam and Moe's.
That was a Indian kid. What was the story?
It was the black Indian, apparently.
What was the tale of little Sambo?
I'll say it.
Oh, he had a tiger. Did he have a tiger?
Yeah. The funny thing, to be fair, is they say that the restaurant was named for Sam and his, brother, whose last name began with Bo, or brother-in-law or something. Yes.
No.
And then inside the restaurant, the walls were illustrated with the story that you speak of.
Yes, I know.
But now they're saying that they finally hear the words that people are asking them to change the thing.
So it's a little
so problem solved. We're gonna be good.
Boy with the tiger in Arabia or
South
something.
Indian.
Something like
It
that.
says
Yes.
South Indian boy who lives with his father and mother named Black Jumbo and Black Mumbo. While out walking, Sambo encounters 4 very hungry tigers and surrenders his colorful new clothes, shoes, and umbrella so they'll not eat him. The tigers are vain and each thinks that he's better dressed than the other. They have a massive argument, chase each other around a tree until they're reduced to a pool of ghee, clarified butter. Sambo then recovers his clothes and collects the ghee, which his mother uses to make pancakes. That's the plot?
Oh.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Pancakes?
looking at-
Because they did have good pancakes.
They did have good pancakes.
Well, maybe
I'm
there is
looking at
some great
Wikipedia.
second build here. That's a.
But it's just so you know, problem solved.
Is he black? I still don't know. All right.
South Indian.
All right. Let me hit Mercari. Problem solved. You got stuff you don't want to clutter up the house with. The kid's baseball glove that doesn't fit. The dress only worn once. The old phone in the drawer, huh? All that stuff. See, my thing with Mercari is I don't care about the money. I care about the waste. That stuff's going in a landfill and ending up on a beach somewhere in India. You don't want that. Couldn't be on a Texas beach because they're landlocked. Mercari's a selling app that makes it fast and easy to sell almost anything. Simply take a few pictures, describe your item, and they'll get it listed. Mercari even email you a shipping label when it sells. No meetups, no hassles, no problemo. 600,000 plus reviews, 4.8 star average rating. Don't let this stuff go to waste. Sell it and buy, sell almost anything on Mercari. That's Mercari on the App Store. You just go get it, Mercari.com. That's Mercari. Mercari, the selling app. Yeah. It's so weird. I just think about my so limited world of the Texas beach thing. Like everything I saw of Texas was just a gunfight in a desert. And that's all I knew. And then, Dallas, sorry.
Well, you would have been, really confused about Missouri with the Lake of the Ozarks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, it's huge.
I did not know that.
So this will probably feel like a footnote at this point, but if you haven't heard, it's not just Gone with the Wind, it's Cops. Show Cops coming to an end. Deadline reports it was pulled last week in the aftermath of George Floyd's death. It premiered on Fox 1989, aired for 25 seasons. The show was resurrected in 2013 when Spike TV ordered it, new episodes. And it was going into its 33rd year, but has been off the air since June 1st with no plans to air any of the episodes they had in the can. Also goes the same for Live PD, essentially a spin-off show, same type of show on A&E. That was pulled June 5th, and they don't know what they're going to do with it. They don't know what they're going to do with cop shows. And we talked about getting rid of
show Cops.
There you go.
I interviewed their producers and the creators before. Yeah. And they were like, well, we actually try to balance out the ethnicity of the people. Like if you go, hey, we got 3 brothers in the row. We can't have that. We've got to slide a white boy in there every once in a while. Like that was something they were sort of on. It wasn't just catch as catch can. They were doing it. They were trying to give it some balance already. But I guess any cops and any arrest is... no bueno.
Not good right now.
Yeah. Well, so
verboten.
Unintended consequences. cops arrest people and jails and prisons hold people. So we do this weird thing that I've been talking about out loud for a long time, which is when you go, hey, there's too much of this. Like there's too many black kids, young black boys suspended at too high a rate. And then you go, how do we fix this? And then the answer is stop suspending young black men. I always go, well, that'll definitely change the statistics, and that'll definitely stop young black boys from being suspended at a higher rate. But I don't know that it's a big picture fix. And the notion, and we're kind of getting into this world where it's like, we have poor people. How do we fix it? You give everyone $1,000. That's how we fix it. Or college is expensive. Some people can't afford it. How do we fix it? You make college free. And then you go, there's too many arrests going on, and there are too many people behind bars. You go, what do? Get rid of cops. And first off, mission accomplished. You will not have arrests. It will dramatically decrease, but there are unintended consequences. Big time. I mean, we already have the Ferguson effect. It's like cops don't want to get out of their cars. They're not proactive. They're just waiting for the 911 calls. And there's a lot more murder and a lot more crime in those areas where the cops don't feel like getting out of their cars. Who could blame them? I'm saying I always think about that episode as a kid when I was watching Sherman and Peabody. Sherman and Peabody. Do you remember those guys?
Machine.
In the Wayback Machine. And they were doing a car race. And the other car was like beating them. And it's like, come on, Sherman, go faster. And he's like, I couldn't. And at some point, they smashed the glass of the speedometer. They grabbed the arm that was showing 60 miles an hour, and they turned it to 100 miles an hour.
Oh, there you go.
And they won the race. And I remember that very clearly as a 9-year-old watching that. A lot of range. That night, Roots. During the day, Sherman and Peabody in the Wayback Machine. But I thought, yeah, the speedometer says 100, and yes, there are less arrests, and yes, there's less in prison, and yes, there's less suspensions. But did you fix the problem? And what might we look forward to in the future? Because the reality is the car needed to be fixed and modified so it could go faster. And we're doing a weird approach to problems, which is we got too many people in prison, let them out of prison. Too many cop arrests, get rid of the cops, have them stand down. Okay, just watch out, because the one thing I've really learned from studying society over the last 20 years is unintended consequences. You know, we were, in Los Angeles, like someone was like, English only. People got to learn English. Those young kids got to learn English. Oh, no, teach them in Spanish. Okay, so you teach them in Spanish, but now you don't have a good grasp of the language that everyone speaks. How limited are your employment opportunities if we didn't get... Now, people go, oh, that's cruel. Come on, those kids... Wouldn't you wish that somebody got hold of your kid in the 3rd grade and gave them the English versus the easier route? And maybe the more respectful route is teach them in Spanish. That's great. Now that person is 35 and their English isn't that good. How does that help them now? What are the unintended consequences? I don't know all the nuts and bolts of that rule. I remember it was something people were debating some years ago in LA. But what I'm saying is yes, it seems unfair to make those kids whose first language is Spanish to learn in English, and maybe it's going to be more difficult for them, and so on and so forth. But what about 20 years down the road when they're unable to join mainstream society and work the kind of jobs that can only be had by people that mastered the language? Unintended consequences. Think about it.
It's kind of a rich man, poor man, because when you think about like, oh, well, we send my son to a private school and he does Spanish immersion all day. They're not even allowed to speak English.
I know. It's crazy. I think, doesn't Fitzdog's kid go to a Spanish immersion school?
We can find out
does
tomorrow.
he?
Yeah.
Well,
is he coming in tomorrow?
Yeah, he's a guest tomorrow.
Oh.
We got to talk about
I didn't even know that. I didn't even talk to you about that.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
That's
weird.
weird.
It's not like he hasn't been on the show, but he's coming in tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I just remember hearing that story. Yeah. Listen, I'll give my kids some Spanish immersion. I'll take them down to Alvera Street and tell them to knock themselves out for 20 minutes and then it's back into the car. Oh, okay. Well, then we'll talk to them how Spanish immersion works. Spanish
immersion for Sonny. Just send him into your backyard.
That's right. That's Roberto. That's Alvaro. Now get to getting. Shouldn't we be in Chinese immersion now? I'm just figuring out which way the wind is blowing. Yes, he does go to Spanish Fitzdog's. How'd you find that out online or just text him?
Gary remembered.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let's do one more, Gina Grant.
All right. Well, do you remember the beautiful Bar Refaeli? The beautiful supermodel
model,
Israeli.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thinking of a nightclub.
A vision. A beautiful woman. Well, she's known for that, but she's also known now for striking a deal with the feds, but not a very good deal for her mom. So she reached a plea bargain with Israeli prosecutors in her tax evasion case that she is going to have to serve 9 months of community service. So she was charged with trying to hide $6 million she earned between 2009 and 2012 and lying about living with Leonardo DiCaprio at his house while her primary residence was in Tel Aviv. So she's 34 right now. She has, I think, 3 kids, and she was able to avoid time behind bars in exchange for community service. Her mom, however, her business manager, C.P. Refaeli, was charged and convicted. She's going to jail for 16 months.
Wow.
So I don't know if it was the mom saying, take me instead, or Barbie like, hey, let's talk.
And she has community service?
She has 9 months community service.
Gotta be so weird. Like, who's that fucking hot chick picking up garbage by the side of the 5?
In that jumpsuit.
That kind of smoking, man. Yeah. Is she out here now or is she in Tel Aviv?
Well, I'm not sure, but her primary residence is Israel. So this all went down in Israel. And one of the articles I read a couple about him. It was all done in shekels. So I think that's
shekels.
the whole point, that they're serving it there. Yeah.
I wonder if they put prisoners in shackles there and then if there's a who's on first type of situation. You know, we need to get them there. Need them in shackles. Sorry.
Yeah,
How many
no, that's
shackles?
why they're here.
No, shackles.
They didn't pay enough what in taxes?
Shackles. Shackles. Shackles.
So now she didn't wear?
Yeah, she's going to wear shackles. We'll put her, we're going to bar, where she's going behind bars. Bar.
Oh, no.
Bar.
What,
no.
you think you're funny, Shecky?
Mom's bar. Sorry. Bars. Okay, the one whose name's Bar's going to be free. Her mom's going to be behind bars. She'll be in shackles.
Yeah, she stands behind her, whatever. Yeah, that's a good mom. She stands behind her.
She needs to be in shackle. God damn it. Who's all right?
This is missed.
Let's just. Yeah. Sorry. Wait a minute. Before you go behind bars, let's just do a sidebar over here with to figure out, get her out of her shekels and let's do a sidebar before we figure out if your mom's going behind bars or not and how many shekels. Let's just dismiss this. Moving on.
Easier.
Hey, promise not to hide any more money. Okay, I believe you. It's moving.
It's a ramshackle.
Moving on. All right, let's bring it home, Gina Grant.
I will in just 1 second. Literally 2 seconds ago, got this notification from the Washington Post that says NASCAR to ban display of Confederate flag at all events and properties, as we were speaking about yesterday. I know, Brian, you're very sad. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
Gina Grad.
That was the news with Gina Grad.
Also, I know everyone just has to apologize now, but how down with the cause were you 10 minutes ago? Then how down are you now? You know what I mean? Like, hey,
right,
Nabisco, you've been the company for 121 years. I haven't heard anything from you about Black Lives Matter. Now you send
That's
out
all of a sudden very important.
You sent out a tweet on Wednesday. Is this? What if you weren't being pressured? Would you have sent the tweet anyway? It's basically you screaming at somebody. You know, it's like somebody called you fat and you're screaming, apologize. And they go, sorry, you're not fat. But Do they think that? Would they apologize on their own? Like, my whole thing is demanding that everyone do this. It's not that satisfying because you want them to do it. You know, you want them to think about it and go, well, this isn't right. Not, you know, when there's a fire, everyone's into fire safety when there's a fire, but you want them to kind of practice fire safety before there's a flame. You know what I mean? Like, you want these companies to sort of practice this stuff before. It all feels weird that there's an avalanche of this now, and it doesn't smack of sincerity to me. That's all I'm saying. All right, let me hit Geico. These days, people are sharing more and sharing your dance moves, your DIY haircut fails, your inner lip sync star, all online. And now Geico wants to share. And you can go to Geico Give Back. The Geico Give Back, 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies for current and new customers because Geico's committed to the long haul. 15% credit lasts your full policy term. Visit geico.com/giveback. All right. Jay Leno is going to be coming up. I did an interview with him. It's a long and thorough interview, and I'm very happy with it. And I think you're going to learn a lot about the man. And we also got a great Chael Son and Good Sports coming up as well. So we'll take a break. We'll come back with the great Jay Leno right after this. All right, Jay Leno has joined me because I asked Jay Leno to join me, and he was nice enough to join me.
And you were nice enough to do my show, and you won the race, so you did good.
I love Jay Leno's Garage. I'll give you all the official particulars on that show in a moment. Or Jay can. Give us all times and dates for Jay Leno's Garage.
Well, it's CNBC, 10 o'clock, and 7 o'clock California time.
And just TiVo it like I do. I watch every week.
Yeah, there you go.
So I had this thought about you specifically, which is I've been thinking a lot about fear and people's relationship with fear. Yeah. And it's great these days. A lot of people are having a big sort of fear orgy. And I thought, I'm not fear-based. I know that sounded bizarre, but I'm not a fear-based person. And I thought, Jay Leno is not fear-based. And
no.
I watch what you do, and I see what you do, but I don't know how you got that way or if you were always that way.
No, I think I was always that way. I'm not a panicky person, you know. Whenever I know I'm going to crash, I just go limp and relax and let it happen. I don't tense up, you know. I remember when I was at Talladega, we were doing 100 laps at 190 miles an hour trying to break this record with the Carrera GT, the Porsche.
Yeah.
And, you know, up to about lap 100, I'm coming down the straight, and the guy gives me the thumbs up. I went, oh, great. And I just lifted my foot off the throttle, and the rear end came around. Just spun 8 times. But I always remember that old adage, you always hit what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at the wall, you'll hit the wall. So as soon as I saw the wall, I kept the wheel. Then I saw the wall again. I just kept cutting the wheel. And I spun down the center of the track, and it was okay. And I realized, oh, all right. So that was about as scary as it gets, and it wasn't that bad. So,
well, I was watching. I famously when you had the Hemi under glass rollover.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And you know the thing rolled violently, and then soon as it came to a stop, Jay just turned to the driver and went, "You okay?" And I thought, "Oh, Jay."
Well, the funniest thing was the medic runs over and says to the driver, "What's your name? How old are you?" He goes, "I'm Bob Riggle, 81 years old." And he taps me. He goes, "What's your name? How old are you?" And I said, "I'm Bob Riggle, and I'm 81 years old. One of these two men is the real Bob Riggle." You have to, you know, and they got a big laugh, and it was pretty funny.
But that wiring, and I think nobody wants to get injured or killed, but I still kind of wish that wiring upon my kids, you know, that calm, sort of that I'm willing to go out and put myself in danger without being a daredevil.
Right, I know what you mean. I'm not a panicky type person. I try to do I had this argument with somebody the other day that got mad and threw something and broke something. And I go, "Why'd you throw it?" "Because I was mad." Mm-hmm. Well, but what does it do? I don't understand why you would break something. How does that now make it better? It doesn't. It's not logical, you know.
Right. But it's funny that the logic is in kind of short supply and the logical people are kind of few and far between. Do you think that your disposition is aided by the fact that you live in a mechanical world? I have this theory that everyone is drifting into it. So I think what's happening is people don't have a relationship with danger because they sit in a cubicle all day and they kind of look at a computer screen, and you climb under a Stanley steamer with a blowtorch.
You know, interesting you say that because speed is the only new sensation of the 20th century. If you put a baby in a room and turn out the light, the baby will cry. But you take the same baby, put him on the hood of a car and go 70 miles an hour, there's no fear because there's no inherent fear of speed because evolutionary-wise, I think it's still fairly new. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't have years of being chased by dinosaurs or whatever it might be, or darkness is scary. So you don't have that. So it becomes, it's a learned experience.
Right, and I think that, and I don't want to speak for the guys at your shop, but I've found that my blue-collar friends have a better relationship with fear, and then as it pertains to like pandemics and stuff, they sort of react differently than my Hollywood friends.
Oh, that's definitely true. Yeah, oh, yeah, that's hilariously true.
Right.
Yeah, because your Hollywood friends are just idiots.
Right.
They just don't, they're thinking about, well, how's this going to affect my show next week? Or it's not. It's something, they think it's something greater than themselves, you know. I would agree with that. That's why most of my friends are, quote, as you call them, mechanical friends, because there's a logic to it as to why something happens a certain way, you know. I mean, I know people are afraid of guns because they could just go off.
Right.
Well, they don't.
Right.
You understand how it works. There's a certain amount of pressure here. Unless it's made in China out of some pot metal that's going to disintegrate, it's not just going to go off. You learn how to handle it and how to use it, you know. So yeah, that's funny that you said. Or fire. Fire is another one. You know, I know people that. Well, here's a perfect example. I drove one of my steam cars into the gas station, and for those who don't know, you use gasoline to heat the water, and the water makes steam, and then you proceed like a train. And this lady goes, "Hey, your car's smoking." I said, "Oh, thank you, but it's not smoke, it's steam." "What do you mean?" "It's a steam car, it runs on steam." And she goes, "Yeah, right." I go, "No, it does." She goes, "Why are you putting gas in it?" I said, "We're putting gas in it because the gasoline heats the water like it would in a stove and makes it hot." And she goes, "Well, why don't you just leave it in the sun?" I said, "Well, if the sun could boil water, I don't even think we'd be having this conversation. We wouldn't be talking." And she looked at me like I was making all this up. It just made me laugh. It's just very funny.
It's a sort of a detachment from mechanics, science. There's a math that's falling by the wayside, and it's kind of hurting us as a society. The way I wish people were more tangible. Would go out in the garage and
that's funny to me because let me lose this. Here. I'm on the phone. I'm doing the podcast quite late. That makes me laugh because, you know, I always hear these ads on the radio. Today, people are concerned about value. Yeah, like my parents just threw money in the street. They had no idea. But you realize someone who grew up in the 20s, you were better able to cope with the world you live in because you could fix the tractor, you could fix the car, you could grow your own food. You could, in a pinch, you knew how to use manure for fuel, I mean, whatever it might be. You could control your own destiny.
Right.
Now the power goes out and people just, you know, they just panic. They don't know what to do, you know.
Do you think your lack of fear, for lack of a better title for what you possess, I'm the same way. When the car goes out of control, I have to be told sometimes not to let go of the steering wheel. Like, I just give it up. I did a race once, or I worked with an instructor once, and he kept saying to me, he said, "You got to hold on to the wheel with both hands. You can't have one hand out, you know, the window of the cigarette and hold on with the other hand." Like, but he did say to me, "You're the most relaxed person I've ever seen drive a car." And I thought, well, the intensity just makes you a worse driver.
Actually, Paul Newman was the most relaxed person I ever saw.
Really?
Paul Newman came to the Tonight Show, and we were filming over here, you know, where we used to do it over in Burbank. And by that time, every show had left. So they're like 25 or 30 sound stages. So you literally had these corridors that were almost half a mile long.
Cavernous.
Cavernous. Yeah. So we decided to do a go-kart race. And if I was going to race Paul Newman, I think I told you this once before.
It's in the documentary.
Yeah, and Paul gets in there, and he's, 81 or whatever it was. So calm. I'm working my ass off trying to keep up with him. And he just flamed. I mean, he just, and I'm just cutting the wheel too much. I'm sliding too much. I'm hitting the wall and bouncing. And just the most relaxed, calm guy. And we did it like 3 times to see if I could get him. I never did get him. He was that good.
Well, I drove with Jay the other week, and it's on Jay Leno's Garage.
Oh, yeah,
Jay's a fast driver. Jay went all out in that Z car over at Fontana, and you'd never been on that track before.
No, that's the thing about this show. It's so low budget. You hear your first time on the track, first time in the car. Go! I go the race. Well, I don't get a practice lap. No, just go.
So do you think being on stage and being a comedian, do you think the fear, the lack of fear, or the good relationship with fear has aided you in that endeavor as well?
Oh, I think so. I remember once I was on stage and a beer bottle went flying past my head and smashed behind me. And I said, who did that? It's what coward threw that? And this enormous guy stands up. Because I had a couple of drinks. And then he looked at me and goes, look, I'm really sorry. I don't happen again. And now I realize, and he really felt bad, but the guy was enormous. I went, oh my God, if this guy comes out, I'm dead. I'm sorry. I behaved very badly. I apologize. All right, you're forgiven. Sit down. Anybody else?
Where was that?
That was in the Improv. Yeah.
Out here?
Yeah.
Wow. What circa what year would you say?
Oh, 80s. Late 80s?
Did, you were with everyone, you saw everyone, those legendary stories of the Comedy Store back in the day, and Letterman and Leno and everybody. And
Richie Pryor. There was nobody better. It's so funny, I say Richie Pryor because we called him Richie. And people go to me, yeah, why do you call him Richie? It's Richard. No, he was Richie Pryor then. I mean, that's what it was. And to me, that's how... comics are inherently pretty lazy. You tend to go to where you do well. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to Mitzi, and Richard was in. He was rehearsing for Live on the Sunset Strip. It was going to be one of the first. This is before they videotaped comics or did any of that stuff. He was making a stand-up film.
Right.
And he was working it out every night at the Comedy Store. And I said to Mitzi, could I follow him every night? Just to see. And he would go up, blow the people like, I mean, laughing so hard. Good night. And he'd run off the stage, And they go, please welcome Jay Leno. And I realized at that point, I didn't have an hour's worth of material. I had about 16 minutes or 17 minutes. And I was taping it every night. And I just threw out everything that didn't get a laugh because, nothing funny. You're talking to comics. Like, why are you still doing that Nixon's not a crook bit? Well, I mean, it worked the other night. I know, but the last 40 nights, it didn't work. You just happened to have a really old audience tonight who knew what you were talking about.
Right.
There's that tendency to never want to give up anything. And that made me just clean house and throw a bunch of material out. So it was a good lesson.
So going after someone who may have been the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
But you sought that out, right? I mean, you wanted to go after him.
Oh, yeah. And he was the best. I mean... It's really different. I mean, he was the first guy, not the first, but one of the first to use obscenities not in a way that would be gratuitous, It was a part of the vernacular, as a part of the character. When he did a character, he really became that character and talked like that character and was really, really funny. He had the perfect, in the sense that Mike Tyson had the perfect background to be a fighter, horrible childhood, parents mistreated, the anger. Richie had the same thing, grew up in a whorehouse in, was it Des Moines, I think it was?
I know the hard scrabble.
Yeah. And it just all the elements,
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about Tyson as we were talking about the old days of the Comedy Store, and it's interesting that a club has a sort of cycle to it, like the heavyweight division. You think about the heavyweight division with Ali and Frazier,
right?
Foreman and all that, and then you get to the sort of early 80s, and it's a bunch of guys you never heard of, and you don't really care anymore. And then at some point, Tyson comes around, and in a weird way, a comedy club can have that. It can have that early days with you and Letterman and Richie Pryor and all the Sam Kinison later and all this stuff. And then at some point, I don't know, dries up a little. It has a little lull. And then there's a reawakening. And it has, like, if you looked at it on a chart, it could look like the heavyweight division.
Yeah, it's funny. You don't really think of it that way when you're going through it. It just seems like another day. I always say the trick to life is to know you're in heaven before you get cast out of it. And that was sort of the way I felt there. This was perfect. We didn't make a lot of money or anything, but you got an accolade from your peers, from the audience. There'd be little quips in the press and all that kind of stuff. And every now and then Carson or Steve Martin or somebody would drop by to see who the hot new comic was. It was a wonderful time. It really was. It was a fabulous time.
So you came out at what age?
I came out in 72. I was still in college. I was going back and forward. Permanently from 73 on. Yeah.
When did it hit you that you come from a pretty regular environment?
Very regular environment.
And so stand-up comedy seems it's not Richard Pryor's. Your early years were different than Richard Pryor's.
Oh yeah, I can remember my mom talking to my aunt, and she must say, "What's Jay doing now?" And my mother's from Scotland. Well, Jay, he has a little skit that he puts on from town to town. He goes to different towns and does a skit. And I go, "No, Mom, I don't really do a skit there." I mean, they never really understood what it is I did.
Were they around long enough to see the kind of all of your success?
Oh yeah, they made it to the first couple of years of the Tonight Show.
So.
To me, that's the saddest thing. People who don't, that happened to Paul Newman. Paul Newman was 24, and his dad said, "Get a goddamn job." He told me this story. You're this, you're a bum, this acting thing is stupid. Just, on and on. And his father died, and literally the next year he was the biggest star in the world.
I do. I feel this exact same way oftentimes when I talk to athletes who, played in the World Series or won the Super Bowl or something, and they go, "Oh, my dad passed away." I go, "God, but was he around long enough to see you?"
Right. I mean, to me, that's the Paul Newman's one is the saddest because you're that close. My dad was 43 when I was born.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was always jealous. I remember being really jealous of Howie Mandel because Howie's dad was like 19 years old, something like that. And he would bring his dad to the Comedy Store. And his dad was like 48 or 50. And it was like, I wish I could do this with my dad. And then sadly, Howie's dad I think, had a massive stroke or heart attack and died. And I went, oh, man, just be careful what you wish for. You just don't know. And I realized, because how it is, you're always jealous when people have their parents longer than you had yours,
Well, it's sort of be careful who you compare yourself to. Like you really don't know what their past is and what's next, and it's easy to kind of go, "That guy's got it so good over there. I'm struggling over here."
Well, it's funny you said I had a comic who was nameless, not famous, but he said to me, he's grousing about the fact that he was not. Oh, let me do this. I'm doing a podcast. Call back.
I like that technique. I'm going to do that even when I'm driving and my mom calls.
And what was I talking about? This comic said to me, "Well, you and Seinfeld and Letterman, you were lucky. You grew up during the golden age of comedy when it was easy." I go, "It wasn't any easier. It's always the same. It's not any easier. It's just the most ridiculous comment."
Yeah, it's in a way, it's like saying it was easier to make the Celtics in 1961 or something. Well, the game may be different, but it wasn't easier.
You can only live in the time you live in. I hate these things where, well, I think Muhammad Ali could not have been beaten by whoever it might be, or some modern fighter. And
they do it with race car drivers.
Yeah, they don't live in the same time. They don't live in the same era, different machinery. I mean, something that I thought was really fascinating, and they did this with race car drivers. They took some of today's racers and put them in some cars from the 50s and earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh, my God, this is like the scariest because the brakes,
right.
I mean, they're obviously the reactions are as sharp as ever, but the car is not. It doesn't stop when you press on the brakes. You've got to use the transmission. You've got to put it into a bit of a slide to scrub off some speed. There's just all different techniques, So you just live in the time you live in.
So you come out, you're going, what are you studying in college at that point?
What am I studying? I guess I remember going to Emerson, and my parents wanted me to go to college, and I ought to go to college. And I took speech therapy because it said at the end of the semester, each student would be required to give a 20 minutes talk. And I remember guys going, I got to talk, man, you got to talk. I can't talk. I said, well, I can talk for 20 minutes. Jesus, give me that one. I'll sign up for that one. I paid no attention in college. I didn't have any interest in it. At that point, I was working clubs and trying to be a comedian. I would go to class during the day, and I would drive from Boston, New York, almost every night to try and get on at the Improv, and be back in school the next day. And if something wasn't on the test, I wasn't interested in it. But somehow I graduated. To this day, I have no idea how that happened, but I did graduate. But I can say I got a lot out of it. But that being said, I made connections and I made friends. And I realized, because see, when I grew up, I was the only comedian I'd ever met. I never met anybody who wanted to do comedy for a living. I mean, there were people that did skits in school, but no, you can't. It didn't even occur to me. I remember Mrs. Langdell, our next door neighbor, said, you can't be a comedian unless your father was a comedian. That's the way it works in Hollywood, Once you go out there, if your father wasn't a comedian, you can't be, this is the only business where people know nothing about it, feel free to give advice, Sure. And I thought, oh, man, well, my dad wasn't a comedian. How am I ever going to make it here, So it was very funny.
When I met Jay when I was 20 or so, maybe 21, trying to think. It's funny, I grew up out here in North Hollywood, but I didn't know any comedians, and I didn't know how anything worked either. And I spotted Jay, as I've told you guys, living in the house across from the house I was working on.
Right.
Up in the hills off like Woodrow Wilson up there.
Del Zuro, on Del Zuro Drive.
Yeah. And I was working on a house, and I was putting stucco on the outside of the house. And the thing that's kind of weird about stucco, I guess stucco, like putting stucco on is sort of like riding a horse. Like if the horse knows you're a novice and knows you're scared, it does what it does.
Right.
But if it respects you. And so the thing that's weird about stucco is you mix it up and you put on a hawk and you get a trowel. And the guy knows how to spread stucco, puts it up and just spreads it on. It just goes on like cream cheese on a bagel. And then he goes, you try. And then you do it and it all just falls off.
Right.
You just did the exact same thing he did.
Right.
But it doesn't work. So I was outside this house trying to spread stucco on this window. And I was watching the neighbor, who was Jay. And I think you may have been renting that house at the time.
No, I bought that house.
You bought that house. What year did you buy that house?
1980.
1980. How long were you in that house for?
6 years.
6 years. So this must have been about 83, 82, 83.
It was, yeah.
And I was just watching this guy's schedule. It was a real tight street. It was a narrow street. I even think that the couple whose house I was working on with the contractor was just me and another guy named Tom Johnson. I think at some point they asked if they could park their car in your driveway or something like that to make room for the truck or some version of that. And you had the big Buick Roadmaster back then and everything. Still got it. And all the motorcycles were in the garage.
Right.
I can picture the house right now. It's like a driveway. The Buick was sort of in the back of the driveway. You turn right, there's the garage.
Right.
The front door's off the garage.
Right.
So I'm sitting out there and I'm spreading stucco starting at 7 in the morning. And I'm noticing the neighbor, because I'm up on the scaffolding, just kind of the street's narrow. It's quiet. And I see you come out and get the newspaper. And then you came out, mid-morning or something like that. I don't know, probably did some sets that night at the Comedy Store or Hermosa or something. And it seemed to me you came out and got the paper at 10, 11 in the morning or something some version of that. And then I see you go back in the house. And I think, okay, this guy's not working. Like, he's not getting up and having to go punch the clock, and I'm still out there spreading stucco. And then at some point at noon or 1 o'clock, you'd come out and start working on the bikes in the garage. You start fiddling around with the bikes. And I remember thinking, what a schedule this guy's on.
Oh, there you go.
This guy's on a schedule. And then I recognized you. I was like, I think that's Jay Leno. I think that's the comedian. Now, this is 81, 82.
Yeah.
So you're not a household name.
No, I've been on Carson and Merv and all that kind of stuff.
Right. I think I know this guy. And so I started going over after we punched out, which is like 3:30. And I started watching you, talking to you while you're working on the bikes.
I remember thinking, that guy, man, he's done at work at 3:30. What a schedule that guy's got.
You got to go to work tonight.
That's great. I got to go to work in 4 hours.
You had the bikes with the valves on the outside of them, the valve springs on the outside of them.
Some of the older bikes, yeah.
Yeah, and you're working on those. We were talking about you having a Sunbeam Tiger.
Right.
And you rolling it and twisting it all up.
I rolled it 3 times. And Do you remember Boris, the Russian guy that lived on the other side of the house you were in? You know, when my wife and I moved in, we keep this guy, hello, neighbor. My name is Boris. Hi, Boris. So Mavis says, why don't we meet the neighbors? Let's go down to Ralph's or on the road. Let's get one of those cakes, and we'll bring it next door as a welcome gift. So, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I go knock on the door. Yes, Boris. Hi, Jay and Mavis, your next door neighbor. Yes. Oh, we have a little gift for you. Oh, come in. He's got a robe on. And I see the living room has no furniture, but it's got a shag carpet. He's got a camera set up, and there are 2 naked girls on the floor. And he goes, oh, you're busy. No, it's just making a movie. Come in. So I have the cake. I go, hi, girls. Hello. Hi. It's my wife, Mavis. Yeah, I'm being like the neighbors, you know. So I say, hey, can I put this cake? Oh, just put it down on the ground. So I put the cake on the floor, and the girls crawl over like 2 dogs. Cake! And they start eating the cake, you know. And the guy goes, hey, girls, don't eat the cake. You have more film too. More filming. Stop eating cake. You know, I said, well, I bought the cake for everybody. Really, it's fine. I said to my wife and I, we got to go. No, wait, the girls, go in the other room. I want to talk. And then we talk for that. I go, this is Hollywood. I'm really living in Hollywood now. They're shooting a porn movie next door, and I bring I put it on the floor, and the girls crawl over and eat the cake. I mean, hilarious.
I should have went to Boris's instead of Leno's place.
Exactly.
So I just kind of would hang out in the garage a little bit and talk to Jay, and you were surprised that I knew who you were. You were surprised that I'd recognized you. But I thought, man, this guy's got his bikes, he's got his Roadmaster, he's got his garage.
Yeah.
He's on a great schedule. And I thought, I got to figure out a way to get from spreading the stucco to spreading the mirth, like the great Jay Leno.
There you go.
From that point on, I was just like,
well, you've done well. You've done well.
Well, you know, I don't know what your relationship is with. Well, this will be a good question for you,
Go
Jay.
ahead.
I love cars, as you know. You love cars. And, you know, the cars we love aren't cheap or free, and someone's got to pay for this. And I wanted the same thing you wanted. I wanted mechanics. I wanted to fabricate things. I wanted to restore things, you know. Right. And I made a pretty simple decision, which is as long as I'm spreading the stucco up on the scaffolding, it's going to be difficult to do a lot of things I want to do in terms of my passion for cars, you know. And I sort of made a kind of nuts and bolts, like, you know, I'm going to start working on comedy because I think there's a better payday there. And then I can, you know, I'm going to pack everything up and go to Laguna Seca in 2 months and do a vintage race. And I couldn't afford to do that if I was a carpenter.
Right.
So a lot of it was sort of practical and a little less art. You know what I mean?
Well, to me, I thought it was a great job. It was a good job.
Right.
You know.
But a job, you're emphasizing.
Yeah, and that's a mistake most people make. They think it's just fun. I remember once I hosted Saturday Night Live, and my friends came down, and after you host, they have the rap party. Oh, okay, great. Then they come to the Tonight Show one Monday, you know, they're all in the audience, and afterwards I go to my office, and they all come up, hey, where's the rap party? I go, I do this every day. We don't have a rap party. Guys, I'm going back to work now. I got to write the monologue for tomorrow. I can't go out. Oh, you're not going to go out? have drinks? No, I got to work again tomorrow. The next day, the next day. You do this every day. And people forget that it's show business. They forget the business aspect of it. They just go for the show, and that's it, you know?
I was always kind of surprised if you've been on the set or been a guest on a variety of different talk shows, late night as well as daytime and whatever. You'll notice that there's a kind of that each set has a personality. I don't mean the set. I just mean the people,
right.
How it works. And Jay's set was very interesting. The thing I took note of on your set is that we'd be doing some run through or rehearsal or something, and your head writer or someone in that capacity would come up to you and go, "Hey, Jay, that thing's not working, or you're doing this wrong, or you're doing it out of order." And I was watching it going, that doesn't take place on most of these kind of sets where somebody comes up and sort of says you're not doing it right.
I'm a huge believer in low self-esteem. The only people with high self-esteem are criminals and actors because they think if it wasn't for that, I would be a huge success. I mean, I'm dyslexic, and my mom would always tell me when I was a kid, you're going to have to work twice as hard as the other kids to get the same thing. And I always thought, well, that seemed fair. I'll just work twice as hard. And if I can get the same thing just by doing that, okay, that's fine. And to me, when I got the Tonight Show, I figured, let me hire these people. They know what they're doing. I'm good at the joke part. I'm not really good at the directing or whatever. So I'll hire good people and listen to them. And that was my thing on the Tonight Show, that anybody could stop the train. Anybody could pull the whistle, stop the train, if there's something they don't like or something they thought was wrong. And sometimes it makes it a little laborious, but everybody feels invested in the show. I mean, we had no turnover in 22 years. We had the same people all the way, you know. And the funny part was everybody I hired, most had never worked in television before, and most were single. So they all wound up marrying each other. And we had 64 kids born.
Wow!
In 22 years, with staff members on the show, because everybody was it was just fun. I mean, I hate places that say we're family here. Any store that says we're family, that means they don't want to pay you any money because they think you're family. So I never used that term, but it was kind of like that a little bit. I mean, everybody got along fine, you know. When you worked on the show, like when I hired writers, I hired them for a year. I didn't hire them for 13 and then dump them, because it takes sometimes 20 weeks to find my voice with that writer. Just to, you know, I would tell people, just write everything. And when I hired people, we hired based on material. Submit me material with no name on it. And I would read it and I go, let's hire this person. And one turned out to be a rabbi, middle-aged. The other turned out to be somebody with severe cerebral palsy who couldn't even leave his apartment.
Wow.
But wrote good jokes.
Wow.
But if that person had come in sort of,
sure.
you know, in that, you know, that convoluted kind of wheelchair that has, I'm not being disrespectful here, just, you know, and then somebody get them up the stairs and their head is looking one way, and, you know, but he wrote great jokes. And that worked pretty well. I never hired anybody that had an agent. I just said, submit me jokes. You know, I was standing at Polo Loco, and this guy behind me said, Jay Leno, hi, I'm so-and-so. I just graduated college. What'd you get a degree in? I sound engineering. I hope to be a sound engineer. I said, oh, you any good? He goes, yeah, I'm good. I said, come to the Tonight Show tomorrow. He came by, and I hired him. He stayed there 22 years. That was Pat, yeah.
Had 26 kids.
Exactly.
With 11 interns.
Yeah. So it was fun. It was a fun place to work. I really enjoyed it. It was a great time. You know, a lot of ups and downs, but that's okay. It was exciting.
Low self-esteem. This is interesting to me. I always tell people I don't have low self-esteem. I just have no self-esteem. I don't really think about.
Okay. Let's go with no self-esteem. I'll take that. I mean, I just don't assume that I'm the smartest person in the room.
But the self-esteem to me is neither here nor there. That's the way I look at it. Like, I don't look at myself as low, like, oh, you're so bad, or you're dumb, or you're whatever. There's stuff I'm good at, and there's stuff I'm not good at, but I'm not constantly evaluating my self-esteem. I think the self-esteem movement.
Well, I think more like I'm a mutt and a purebred thing here. Okay, and I try to use every one of those both sides of the coin there at the same time. You're probably right. Rather than low self-esteem, low self-esteem just sounds funnier because, like I say, when you assume you're not the smartest person in the room, you don't speak first. You let other people speak and hear what they have to say. Okay. Oh man, that's better than what I had. Okay. All right. I'll go with that. As opposed to.
Well, also you're the person who's telling the joke, so ultimately it's going to be you'll get the credit for the joke. So
exactly.
Use the best joke in the room.
Right.
So I often think about how I think about your collection. I think about how much you love cars. The thing that's interesting about you and vehicles and cars is, pardon the pun, most people pick a lane. You talk to those guys all the time, or they tell you they're a car nut, and then they tell you they're a Mopar guy.
Right.
And then if you bring up a BMW M1, they go, what? I don't know what that one is.
I have a friend who's to mention that. I got a friend who's a Mopar guy. He can tell you, that was built on a Thursday.
Right.
I remember Larry was working the undercoating that day, and this is why you have this smear on the guy. And he came to my garage and he goes, Duesenberg, what's that, German?
Right.
No, it's American. Duesenberg? I mean, I've heard it. I thought it was German. No, it's an American built. Really? I mean, it's the American car. And he was a Mopar guy. That's all he did.
Right. And I cannot find a real lane for you in terms of brands. I think you appreciate the mechanics. The mechanicals.
I'm bi-Carl. I like all kinds of cars.
Individually. Yeah. And
I like noble failures. I like cars that were ahead of their time, in their time. Cars that were built too good, they couldn't possibly make a profit. Because I was driving a car just today called the Will St. Clair. Now, Will St. Clair, he was Harold Wills was his name. He was Henry Ford's metallurgist. He was Ford's first employee.
Really?
He designed the planetary transmission. He didn't invent vanadium steel, but was responsible for it because he was a metallurgist. He designed the Ford logo, the blue oval they still wear today.
Yeah.
He was Henry Ford's first, if not very first, employee. And Ford split everything with him 50-50. And Ford being somewhat cantankerous, they had a falling out. And he took his, would be equivalent of $20 million in stock and started the Will St. Clair car. It was overhead cam, 1920. Overhead cam, V8, no fan belt, everything driven internally, fan driven internally.
It's all chain driven or gear driven?
No, gear driven. Gear driven.
Ooh.
Gear driven cams.
Wow.
Based on the Hispano-Suiza aero engine.
That's very intricate.
It's the most. And Henry Ford, they were still friends. Henry Ford came out to take a look at it and said, it's too complicated, nobody can fix it, and nobody wants to go 70 miles an hour. And every car was a prototype. He always kept trying to improve it and make it.
What was the displacement?
265 cubic inch, 67 horsepower. It's I'll show you. It's one of the most beautiful motors you've ever seen. But he built about 12 or 14,000 of them. But ultimately, he went under because it was supposed to be a $2,000 car. Turned out to be a $3,000 car when a Ford Model T was $260.
Right.
Henry Ford's genius was he built exactly what people needed and not 1 cent more.
Right. He was kind of McDonald's versus foodie, chefy.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
I'm gonna serve crepes on a taco
Good
truck.
food at sensible prices. Thank you. Yeah.
Right. And so for you, not being a Mopar guy or a Porsche or Ferrari guy, just sort of going, I'm looking for the most uniquely or ambitiously engineered car with, I think, you probably like the story as well.
Yeah, I bought a Carrera GT. That was my first Porsche. But I bought the clutch first.
Sorry.
2004. I bought the clutch because it had that 6-inch carbon fiber clutch. So I called Porsche and I said, can I get one just to look at it? And I was so impressed with the clutch, I bought the car. And I thought, I just found it fascinating that you could put that much power through a little 6-inch clutch. Yeah. And it was just a beautifully engineered thing.
The Carrera GT, Paul Walker famously died with one of his partner. Also, somebody else died in one of those cars at Fontana, I believe, at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know. And you went around Daytona or Talladega? I'm sorry.
Talladega.
Talladega, 200 miles an hour?
No, 190.
190, one of those.
100 laps on 190.
One of those cars.
Right.
Probably more dangerous than you'd thought at the
Boy,
time.
you know what's really interesting? Now, this is 2004, and I'm driving that car going 190, and every time we get to the corner, you feel it start to just move up the wall a little bit. It's like,
right, the bank.
And the
bank.
car, and it's just walking around. Now, we had Norbert Singer. He's the famous suspension guy from Porsche. He came through and went through the car and did everything else. Then 15 years later, I'm in Detroit with the ZR1 Corvette with Juchner, Taz Juchner, the head engineer for Corvette. And I call him up and I say, can we take it to 200 miles an hour? He said, sure. Okay. So we go to the proving ground in Michigan. Oh, what was this again?
Tell him you're doing a podcast.
I'm doing middle of a podcast. I'll call right back. And I'm with Taz Juchner. So I said, are you a chief engineer for Corvette? Yeah, we get in the car. I said, before we go, tell me the first time you went 200 in a Corvette. He said, well, I never have. I said, what do you mean you never have? He said, I haven't. I've never been that fast in a Corvette. I said, so the first time you're going over 200 miles an hour is with a comedian who's never been on the track in a car you designed but have never taken to. He said, I guess so. I said, let's go do that. Okay. So we get on the track. Now we're averaging I think we averaged 204, but we hit 212 and just kept, we went 50 miles at 204 miles an hour average. Rock steady, didn't move.
Really?
Just unbelievable. Just
far cry from the
and this is a Corvette,
GT.
not a $500,000.
Right.
But
Right.
it shows you how far aerodynamics and suspension have come in just 15 years.
I think famously, and you guys can look this up if you want, I'm just showing off in front of Jay, but Mark Donahue, who drove the 917 Porsche.
Right. I was with his son.
Oh, you were?
Yep. He was with me.
Can-Am car went out to Talladega to set the speed record in that car.
Yeah.
In that 917. Then he, I think, died during practice or something.
I think
very
you're right.
shortly
I think you're right.
thereafter. But let's talk about, you don't have any kids.
No.
You have all these cars. At some
And
point,
motorcycles.
and tons of motorcycles. At some point, your facility is going to have to become a museum.
Not my problem.
But you must have some thoughts about it. I mean,
Not really. No, not my problem. It's I don't know. Whatever happens, happens. You know, people make all these plans like they're going to be looking down to see what happens to their stuff after they die.
no, I get it, but you must be approached by the Peterson Museum or somebody who says, like, hey, what are we going to do with these cars?
You know, I remember I get a lot of calls from wives whose husbands have died and are interested in purchasing, you know. And this all seems so ghoulish. And this woman calls me, and her husband had a Speedster, a Porsche, like a 58. And she says, she's at the funeral. They are lowering the casket into the ground. She feels a tug on her shoulder. And the guy goes, look, I know this isn't probably a very good time, but, you know, if you've given any thought about selling them.
That's
like,
funny.
the guy's not even in the ground. Hilarious. She goes, it's not a good time. Oh, it's not? Oh, okay. You know, and they're like, really? The guy doesn't have a clue.
So there's nothing on paper saying this is where these cars are going. If I
No,
get
not
no
so far, but
motorcycle
maybe
accident.
I'll give it some thought now. Honey, Adam said we should do something about the cars. All right.
It seems, I don't know. It often crosses my mind. Maybe I don't want to sound ghoulish either, but I just think.
But there's something there you want. Which one is it?
I've never thought in those terms, but
now that you mentioned
it, the McLaren F1.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just car. I just took a shining to.
That's the greatest.
Not for nothing.
Investment I ever. People thought I was out of my mind when I bought that car.
What'd you pay for it?
Well, what happened was, I've been reading about them, and they had been out of production for like 5 years.
Is that, 93, 94?
No, this is
the F1.
Mine is the 94. I got it 98.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay, so okay. I can't really find one. So I call McLaren. I speak to Harold Dermott. Harold and Jay Leno. Oh, Miss Leno, yes, yes, just I said, I'm interested. We have one here. We have a black McLaren here, car number 15. It's for sale now. I said, how much is it? He goes, $800,000. I said, well, that's just about what it costs new, isn't it? He goes, well, true, but we think they're going to go up in value. I said, well, 800, that's a lot. I said, you want to think about it? I said, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll call you back in 2 weeks. If it's not sold, I'll buy it. So in the 2 weeks, I'm going, I hope they sell it. I'm an idiot I am to buy this stupid thing.
This is 1998.
Right.
Yeah, 800. You get a nice big house in the hills.
Yeah, exactly.
For $800,000 in 1998.
So I said, okay. So
a big house.
So the 2 weeks go by. I call him, Howard Jenner. Hello, Jay. Yeah. Listen, about the car. He goes, yes, we got an inquiry today. A query. We got a query on the car today. I'm thinking, oh, really? The day I called, they got a query on the car. Right. I said, well, so, yes, should I call the fellow back? No, I'll take it. I'll take it. All right, okay, we'd like you to come over and come for fitting. We set the seat to you and blah, blah, all the typically English sort of nonsense.
Sit in the middle of that car.
Yeah, sit in the middle. Right. And so I went over and I bought it. And it was funny because now it's a used car.
Right.
And there was a luxury tax of 5% on all cars over $30,000 in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I bring it in, and the custom guy, it comes in the port in the East Coast near Boston because I had to get it certified by a guy who would certify it.
Yeah.
And he says, your import tax is this, and it's $50,000 for the luxury car tax. I said, but it doesn't apply to used cars. And the guy says to me, no used car costs $800,000. I go, well, it's a 94. Here's all. I have my lawyer send the information. He goes, I don't care. He said, now, we can keep it here in the dock for 6 months or a year until you get all your thing, or you could pay $50,000 and get it out tomorrow. All right. So then I pay the $50,000.
Wow.
What am I going to do?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so that's what I do. So then I get here, and of course, the last offer I got for it was $17.5. One went
17.5.
Yeah, one went for 20, and then one just sold privately for 24.
And
so
which well, that's why when I stated the one car I wanted, as much as I like the story about the guy who built the one, put the Indian engine in it,
right,
his son drove it
Bob
from
Shotwell, yeah.
Drove it from Seattle to New York.
No, he drove it from.
Oh yeah, that's cute.
Yeah.
But I'll take the McLaren.
Right,
exactly. What I'm saying. Exactly. So if we could just get a Post-it and put my name on it, just kind of stick it to the fender. Did the one that sold privately for $24 million, is that the same? I know there's different versions of them every once in a while, like a lightweight or a track or something.
Well, there's no track version. They're all road cars. They never built a race car.
Something
in fact,
R model or something.
It was the last car you could drive to Le Mans, win the race, and drive home.
Wow.
It was a street car.
So the $24 million one was the same one as your car?
Well, with less horsepower.
With less horsepower?
Yeah, because they felt it had too much of an unfair advantage. So they cut about 60 or 70 horsepower from it.
Oh, the sanctioning body.
Right, the sanctioning body.
You mean when they homologated it?
When they homologated it, yeah. So it came from the factory with 627 horsepower. The one that won Le Mans probably had 550.
Wow. All right, let me hit JB Weld here. DIY projects. Yeah, well, you're talking to Mr. Leno, Mr. Carolla, and we do a lot of this stuff.